Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how you can read Excel data into R. Before we get started, let me note that the Excel file that we're going to be working from, I'm going to have a link to underneath the video description so that you can download it and follow along. And the file is called CanCore2 and it's an Excel file. Additionally, I will have a link to this text file that's going to contain a lot of the information that we cover in this video. So be sure to download that as well if you want to follow along. So let's go ahead and get started. So for my first demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can copy data from an open Excel file and then read that data into R. So what we're going to do is open up our Excel file, and in this particular file you can see in row 1 we have the names of our variables, and there's actually 140 cases, but I'm not going to read all of those cases into R. What I'm going to do is just select a subset of this data right here and right click on copy, and now I'm ready to read the data into R. So to do that, I'm going to open up R, and I'm going to start by giving the name of a data frame. So I'm going to type in my data. That's going to be the data frame name that I'm going to be working from. And so basically the data that has been copied to a clipboard is going to be read into the data frame that's called my data, and that's an arbitrary name. So next I'll type in an arrow, and that arrow is nothing more than a less than sign followed by a hyphen. Then I'm going to type in read.table, and then inside parentheses I'm going to type in file equals, and inside quotation marks I'm going to type clipboard in quotation marks, then a comma, then sep equals, and then quotation marks, then \t in quotation marks, then a comma, and then I'm going to type header equals, and then in all caps true. And that last portion, the header argument, is just basically indicating that we're going to be reading in our variable names. So now I'm going to hit enter, and if I want to take a quick look at the data, the structure of the data, I can use the structure function. So that's just str, then inside parenthesis the name of my data frame, which I'm calling my data. So after in parenthesis and enter, you can see that we get information on our data frame with the variables that are included. So you can see we have ID, performance goals, achievement, and so forth. You can see the variable characteristics. There's integer, numeric, and so forth. You can see it says 11 observations of 10 variables. And remember that we only copied data for 11 observations, but we could have just as easily highlighted the entire data set and read the data in exactly the same way. Now, this is a pretty straightforward approach, but it may not be quite as practical if you have a really large data set. You may want to read the data in more directly. So to do that, what we can do is use the Read Excel package. And so to acquire the Read Excel package, what you're going to need to do is to open up R and then just type in install.packages. And inside parenthesis, what we're going to do is type a quotation mark, then read Excel in quotation marks in parenthesis. When you hit enter, then basically various mirror sites appear, and you can just essentially select one to download the package. So I'm just selecting one from the US, clicking on OK, and so now that information has been, or the package has been saved to R. Now I actually already had the package installed, but that's how you do it. Next up, what we're going to need to do is to use the library function to call up that package. So what we're going to do is type in library, and inside parenthesis we're going to type in read Excel in parenthesis and hit enter. So now the packages have been called up. So if you have the package installed but you haven't used the library function to call it up, then the next set of steps is not going to result in anything but error messages. Okay, so now what we need to do, now that we've used the library function to call up the package, we also need to point R to our data. So basically, if R is not pointed to the directory or folder that contains your data, then that will also yield error messages. So the data that I have, which is stored in the CanCore2 file, my Excel file, is actually saved under my downloads folder. So I'm going to change the directory by clicking on File and then clicking on Change Directory. Next, I'll click on Downloads and then on OK. So now R is pointed to the folder that contains my data, and that is my Downloads folder. So next up, if you want to check just to make sure that R is pointed at the correct folder, you can basically click on, you can type in get WD and then parentheses right here, and then hit enter, and you can see right here that it is pointed at my Downloads folder. Okay, so now we're ready to read the data in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new data frame that I'm going to just call new data, and type in my arrow right here. And so now we're going to type in read_Excel. So this is the function that is associated with our read Excel package. So again, if you have not called up the read Excel package using the library function, then when we type everything else in, we're going to get an error. So make sure that you've called up the package before moving on. So next up, we'll type our parenthesis right here, and then the name of our file. So inside our quotation marks, what I'm going to do is type in cancore2.xlsx, and then in quotation marks here, followed by in parenthesis. So now I will hit enter, and so the data has been read in. And just to be sure, we'll type in str, that's our structure function, and then inside parenthesis we'll type in new data, which is the name of our data frame, hit enter. And so now you can see we have, again, our variable names and everything, and we also see it says 140 observations of our 10 variables. Now let me also note that when we read the data in from Excel, I actually had two sheets in this Excel file. So basically it read in the first sheet, which was our canned core sheet at the bottom. But you can see right here I actually have a canned core sheet and a sheet 1. So if you happen to have an Excel file with multiple sheets and you want to identify or read data in from a specific sheet, you can actually use the sheet function to do that. So to accomplish this, what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a new data frame. I'll just call it new data 2, and then type in my arrow and then use the read_Excel function. And then inside our parenthesis, again, I'm going to type in cancore2.xlsx in quotation marks, then comma, and then I'm going to type in sheet equals, so we're typing in the sheet argument, equals, and then the name of the sheet, which happens to be sheet 1. And so in quotation marks and in period. You'll notice that there is a capital S right here, so you do have to pay attention to whether the letters as you're typing in your code are upper or lower case. If you use the wrong case for certain letters, you'll end up with error messages. So now I will hit enter, and so if I use the structure function again, just to take a quick look at our data, we'll type in new data 2 right here, and there's our in parenthesis and enter. And so now you can see our data frame, and so you can see our variables, achievement, interest, there's gender ID, and level right here, numeric, 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 and there we have a character variables, our character variable here. So there you have it. Let me just note that there are other ways to read data in to R, or Excel data into R. Another option might be to use the RStudio package to do that, but I'm just decided to keep this focused in on using the read table and read Excel functions. So that concludes this demonstration, and I appreciate you watching.